Hello, Jamie from Inky&Scrappy, sharing with you today my Craft Roulette Challenge entry number 179. This is my 5th make for Craft Roulette. It is an improv card making live on Friday nights on YouTube by the very talented Mary Gunfun. So if you don't know what it is, go check it out. I will link it below so you can go and check it out and have fun and play with it, submit your cards, all the things. You don't have to do a video. There's a Facebook group you can submit them to, but it's pretty easy to do it on craftroulette.live. And then just submit your picture. And I'm going to throw Mary a bone here. The last name is Schlungen. I know. It's not my maiden name. Anyways, so when the parameters for this one were a trifold card, and I didn't want to do another shutter card because I just did one of those a couple of weeks ago for Craft Roulette Challenge. So a trifold card, and under a leaf was the element and farmhouse colors. And to me, farmhouse colors are anything but white, because if you actually live in a farmhouse like I do, nothing is white ever. It's a big myth. And a belt. The belt really kind of threw me, and so I work it in there. It works. There's, in my head there was a story with the belt, so it's fine. So yes, we had, and this will probably be, I don't know how it's going to go. We have field work has started. Football is in swing. So my Friday nights, this week we had football on Thursday night. So next week, or this coming Friday, will be football. So I'll miss the live of Craft Roulette again. I missed last night's live and watched the replay on Saturday morning because, farm life, farm wife, I was throwing tires onto a silage pile. Wonderful workout. Yeah, it was what it was. So I am stamping all of my images onto some Bristol Smooth cardstock because I planned on watercoloring because I knew I was going to need a lot of images, and alcohol marker coloring takes some time, and so I was like, I've watercolored for a while, so I decided to watercolor. So I am stamping them with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I did use the powder tool from Tailored Expression to help with that extra embossing powder sticking. And then I forgot to heat set my last set. It is what it is. So I'm coming back, heat setting that quick, and then I will figure out my farmhouse colors. So to me, farmhouse colors would be brick red, because I have a brick red house, and straw is like the yellowish, there's straw all over the front entryway because we just got done with calves and all of the things, so straw tends to just be everywhere. The walnut stain, all of our wood tones in the house tend to be anything that's older is all that walnut stain color, a very dark pigmented stain. And then I went with moss green for my leaf. I really didn't want to use moss green, and so you'll see me trying to change the color of it here, and it was moss green. Moss green because I have green moss growing on the north side of my house. Yeah. Truthfully, my house colors are, I have Americana in the kitchen, and we couldn't do white because it wouldn't hide all of the old stains that were in our house when we got it. So everything is kind of a cream tone. I think it's actually called wheat white. Hence the straw just kind of works, right? So I colored all of my images here. I was not impressed with my watercoloring skills today on the leaves, and yeah, but sometimes you just have to let it go, and I let it go today. I am fighting a migraine and allergy headache, and thinking was hard. So I just had decided, you know what, I'm just going to let it be and go with it. Because that's the whole point of me doing these challenges, is to just not have to be perfect or overthink things all the time. I tend to overthink when I craft. It's what I do. So, of course, when it was under a leaf, I thought of a Bug Deal or Bug Life. Is it a Bug Deal? A Bug Deal stamp set and the Hey Lady stamp set from Lawn Fawn. I had yet to use the Hey Lady stamp set, and I'd been wanting to use it since I got it a long time ago, and so I decided to pull that one out today. I was shopping that crafty stash, and I'm in full fall mode here. I have been in love with all things Halloween and apple picking, fall stuff. That's kind of where my cards have been, and so this one was definitely not in that realm, and so maybe it just took me a little bit more time. So I did bring in, I think it's Decayed mica spray stain from Tim Holtz here for my gray tone or black tone. I just wanted a metallic silver here, and so that worked for the outline on my magnifying glass. Now, where I was originally going with this one is nowhere near where I ended up going with this one. It's just, it happens. Yeah. So I laughed because Mary Gun Fun was trying to pronounce my last name again on the review for last week's show, and she was struggle busting it. And I was like, oh, I should really throw her a bone. So here's my funny story. So Thursday night we had football in a neighboring town, and so my son is defensive, like a defensive lineman or tackle. Don't ask me those questions. He also does running back. But so every time they would say, his last name for the tackle, the lady behind me was just giggling uncontrollably because they butchered it that badly. It was like Slagen, and then it was Slagen, and yeah, and the other, the rest of us were all kind of giggling, and the one guy that's the announcer for our school that does it when we have home games, he's like, do you want me to go and tell him how to correctly pronounce it? I'm like, no, this is hilarious to me. And my brother was watching out in Maryland, and he was like texting me. He's like, what? Slagen? When did you switch your name? And it was funny. So I thought of Mary at the football game on Thursday night, because, yeah. So I figured, I was already planning on throwing her the bone, but Schlungen, don't ask how they pronounce it. It's German. My maiden name is like Robert Son. So easy. Yeah, see? I really should have gone by that one when I started YouTube, right? Anyways, back to my card making process. So I ran my images through the Brother Scan and Cut. You saw them there. And then, of course, I did have the die cut for the magnifying glass. So the one was on the edge and it wouldn't cut properly, so I just deleted it from my scan mat. Ran that through the die cut machine with the circle popped out. So here was where it really went off key. I had planned on just using the circle that was with the magnifying glass and kind of making it like a see-through on the front, and that was kind of where I was going with it. And then I realized I probably didn't have enough leaves for all of those things, and I had to figure out the belt. So I brought in some belt buckle hodgepodge metal pieces from my stash, and then the brown piece there is cracked leather distress heavy stock from Tim Holtz's Ranger line. So that, is my belt. And then I was like, I could recreate this magnifying glass pretty easy, right? Because it's just a circle and a handle. So I went through my stash, found my circle frames here. So they are, and then of course found a coordinating circle stack that was going to be smaller, bigger than my opening on the stitched frame and smaller than the outside of the stitched frame. So it would sandwich, my piece of, I did end up doing a piece of acetate in my window here. I wouldn't have had to. I just thought it added to that whole glass effect. And so for my front, I'm going to also bring in that cloudy border stencil. I can't talk today. Wow. So I'm coming in with that cloudy border stencil using the tumbled glass for my clouds there and my sky. And then for my leaf here, I was really contemplating bringing in some Copics there because I just was not in love with my painting on the leaf. And then I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna figure this one out. So I'm tracing a circle on the inside because I wanted my inside piece to be kind of self-contained. And then to kind of emulate the blowing up of the leaf with the magnifying glass, I'm just using that as a guide to hand draw my veins on this well magnified leaf. So once I have that done, I'm going to pull out my stencil. Of course, I got some black on my silver paper here, but luckily it doesn't dry very well because, you know, I just rubbed it off with my finger. It was all good. And then I need to paint my little leaf here. I definitely thought about doing the other ones, and this is not watercolor paper at all. This is Accent Opaque 110-pound cardstock. It took the paint okay, but it really didn't let you move it, push it around, any of those things, if that makes sense, because it's not watercolor paper, it's not Bristol Smooth cardstock. It's definitely just gonna soak up the color there. And yes, you really don't get much of a blend, which was fine because the leaf that I was emulating wasn't colored very pretty either. So it's all good. I did bring in just that circle pop out and a piece of acetate. And instead of searching for the proper die, I just hand cut it with a very thin border because I wanted to make sure that it was going to stay underneath this frame here. So I'm going to pop the piece of acetate on there and the frame on there. And then for my handle here, I think I'm a little bit off camera. I'm sorry about that. So I die cut a piece of Avery L's, or one of Avery L's sentiment strips. And then I just cut down a little bit. I cut down the top for the handle part, and then I just used the leftover piece for the little neck on my magnifying glass here. And then I'm just going to cut off the overhang here because I wanted it to just be like you're looking in, you know, it's just popped in from the side and you're going to see the big old leaf. And then because the magnifying glass kind of, I didn't want the big white outline on my ladybug for that particular part. I did kind of fussy cut it out so it's not quite as excessively white, I guess, around the outside. I am going to glue that on top of my blown up leaf here. And then I'm going to add a littler ladybug on top of that smaller leaf on top. I still hadn't decided where I was going with that. It's, you know, it's a process. So I'm going to glue my tree branches on here to the front of my card. And keep in mind, I know that I have to add that belt buckle towards the bottom or the belt yet to keep it closed. So I decided to kind of put that towards the bottom, or at least in my head, that was kind of what I was thinking. So I'm just going to grab my leaves that I colored and cut out and kind of set the scene here for, you know, the leaves, I guess. So in my head, this was the story. So maybe it's somebody going out on, you know, like a little kid going on an adventure in the backyard, and they're looking at the leaves on the trees and looking for bugs. And so they have the little magnifying glass tucked in their belt. And so that was kind of where my belt came in with the magnifying glass. I don't know. It wasn't my original intention, but that's where I ended up with it. So I'm going to tuck that little ladybug underneath a leaf because that was one of the parameters. And then for this one, I'm going to bring in, for that middle panel, I decided I wanted to put that bigger leaf on there so it looks like you're getting closer to it per se. And then I'm taking some of the scrap from the front of my card, so a part of that tree branch that was cut off, I just used that on the inside to kind of make that one work. And then I will trim off the stuff that's overhanging on the front. and my other panels here. And then I'm going to bring in my belt buckle here. So I'm going to thread the belt buckle through, and then I'm going to add a little bit of glue onto the back side of my piece here, just to kind of close it all up. So I kind of pulled out a couple of them. This was the one that I just felt looked like the easiest to add, or the easiest to thread my paper through, I think. The other one was like a little bit, I didn't want it to be too big. I wanted it to be sized okay to the little magnifying glass. So now I need to do my little magnifying glass element here. So I did end up using the die set that coordinates with that Hey Lady stamp set and cut out some circles, or just the circle part of that. And then I'm going to take some foam tape and I ran that around the inside of it, pulling in some red calla lily seed beads from Crescent Creations, and then some black gems from, I think it was just a cheap Amazon set. So I have some red and black beads in there in my little shaker magnifying glass. So that's kind of, they were supposed to represent the ladybug. I really wanted a ladybug for in there and I could not find one. I did find the ladybugs that I was thinking of, but they're huge and they weren't going to go in that shaker no matter what. It just wasn't happening. So I needed a sentiment. So for the inside of the card, I did find happiness in the little things. Hence the magnifying glass and how it gets bigger and all of the things. So I am going to free stamp this one without the Misty because, you know, it's all right if it's not perfect. It actually turned out pretty good. So my trick for this one is using the VersaFine Onyx Black. It tends to give me a better, crisper image when I stamp small letters on my cards. It just usually works a lot better. And then letting it sit there for a little bit, not lifting it instantly, because it helps. I think it helps soak into the paper a little bit. Somebody told me that one, and it's, I don't know, I do that a little bit more now, and it definitely gives me a crisper, cleaner impression on those sentiments. And of course, I inky smudged the corner here, so I'm just coming in with my blending brush and the cloud stencil to try to bring in some clouds and hopefully maybe kind of cover up my little ink smudge down in the corner. Did it work? It's a handmade card. It's got imperfections, as in life. It's all good. So I'm going to close this up here, and then all I have to do now is add in that belly band, or belt, shall we say, the little belt with, and then tuck in that shaker. So the shaker's not actually on there. It comes off with the belt. I think it's kind of fun. Anyways, so there is my creation for Craft Roulette number 179. I hope you guys go check out Craft Roulette. It's a good time, and it, you know, gets me out of my comfort zone sometimes. So have a great one. Keep getting inky. Bye.